I would do well on stage. Some places where like the crowds were more intelligent, I did really well. Some places in the deep south like were definitely difficult, but every now and then I would have a really good show.
Yeah.
And a guy named Henry Cho saw me, who was like really big. He does like churches now because I was real clean then.
Hmm.
And he brought me on the road for about a year and a half, where I ended up doing, more like gigs in the South and doing all that. So I just ended up being sort of a road dog where my pay would incrementally go up. Eventually, I would bring other features, but for 13 years, all I did was tour around the country, and
Shit.
do the occasional TV spot. So I was just endlessly driving everywhere. I was putting 150,000 miles on a car in like a year, and
Jesus
just
Christ.
it was crazy, dude. Like but it was amazing. I mean, I really am thankful for all that. Like, I'm 39 now, and I can barely drive to the store without hurting. Which I know people are like that's young, but I don't feel young. I feel very old and broken.
But dude, those fucking even in this area, like I drive around. We have this weird network from uh Everett to Spokane where like people just work this whole area and there's a lot of distance between there, but the lengths that comics will go for a gig is fucking crazy. I mean, luckily I think a lot of people have carved the path to where like it's reasonable compensation for the work
Yes.
itself, but in other places I'm sure it's not. It's like I can't imagine what those early days were like for you. And
Dude, I'm going from Michigan to, I don't know, like North Carolina, and I'm doing 4 shows, and I'm making $250. I'm like, this is awesome. And I remember like one time I got my first headline date, and I was probably like a month in. So,
oh shit.
well, yeah, like maybe like 6 months in. And it was at this place called Joey's in Dearborn. And the booker liked me. It was this guy who passed away last year named Bill Hildebrand. It was my first headline date, and it worked. I mean, I pulled it off every night. I faked it somehow. I did enough crowd work and stuff to pretend that I had 45 minutes and trick an audience.
Yeah.
But they handed me $700 after it, and I was like, I've never seen so much money. Like, I couldn't even believe I was holding it in my hands, like that much money. And yeah, that was pretty cool. Like right after that, but for the most part, dude, yeah, I'd be like, do you want to drive here for $100? And it's like 6 hours away, and I'm like, yeah, just because I just want to get the experience
Oh,
and the
for
work,
sure.
and I somehow think I'm making money, so I print out my MapQuest directions and jump in my car and drive to the middle of nowhere.
That's fucking
And
crazy, man.
yeah, and it was all, I mean, so many different comics then too. Like a lot are still around, a lot are dead, a lot are have quit. Like you see people come and go in this business. It's pretty incredible.
Oh yeah. So how did you get good?
By
Because that's
doing, I think,
did you
by
was it
doing that,
the road or was it like Mark Ridley's or because you were saying how Mark's was the first club in the country that implemented like the MC feature headliner format, and that's pretty
yeah.
much like the gold standard for clubs now. But like, did you come in when that was going on, or did you mainly just like learn by failing on the road?
He didn't fail that much, which was a good thing. And every now, I mean, granted, I bombed hard many, many times. Everybody does, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really failing in my mind because I learned that I wanted to be myself on stage and to keep pushing through who I was, as opposed to pandering to the like worst people imaginable. So you're in certain areas, and instead of like trying to get a rise out of a room of awful people, I would just still be me.
Hmm.
And a lot of people would just immediately cut to like give it up for the troops. This is back when people liked patriotism, that just whatever quick thing you could go to get an applause, and
Hmm.
pander to the lowest common denominator and start doing hacky ass shit that wasn't yours, wasn't anybody's, really, but it had just random material you'd hear every bad road comic do, because there's really two kinds of road comics. One is the complete hack and failure, and just sort of makes it because they can get laughs in a room and you don't have to pay them anything. And then there's dudes like Stuart Huff or Danny Bevins or these certain, this certain Mike Stanley is a great comic. Guy I use Matt Mclaury. Like there's these comics out there that are just absolutely amazing. And the only reason why you don't necessarily know them is because of whatever fate has put them where they're at. Like there's really no reason you don't know them or reason to know them, but some of the greatest comics I've ever seen are nowhere remotely close to a household name. And then, of course, there's the reverse of that.
Oh yeah, dude. Matt's been on too, and his story's super interesting. He's one of the funniest fucking people. I like, people always give me shit because I kind of have like just dead eyes where I'm just like staring. And I was talking to Matt about that when I met him. And I was like, yeah, I just had these fucking creepy eyes. And he looks directly at me. He goes, what is that like?
The first time I took him on the road, because I always thought he was funny, but that dude, he'd like look at his feet on stage.
Really?
And he'd get laughs, but he was so dark, so much darker than he is now.
Really?
And and I brought him on the road it was like 2008. And we were driving to Milwaukee to perform in a comedy club that was under a strip club. And I remember it was the last gig Billy Gardell did before he went to Mike and Molly. And it was like the gig where he was like, I think I'm just going to quit. And then he got the phone call that finally changed his career trajectory. But I remember we're driving and Matt's just kind of staring at me real nervous. I'm just chain smoking and like the whole time he's just reading every sign because he's nervous. So for, several hours, all I hear is Baymont, Denny's, Red Roof. Like, are you going to kill me? Like, what is your fucking deal, man? And he told me his whole Asperger's story. I always knew there was something with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, now he's like my best friend. I've known him for forever.
He's fucking hilarious.
Oh, dude, he's brilliant. And he's a genuinely good person.
Yeah.
And you just don't meet a lot of them in life. And that's just, even comedy aside, he's just a genuinely good human being.
For sure. Yeah. That weekend with you guys, it's crazy because I have worked a lot of other weekends where there's so much bullshit in entertainment. And that was actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about. You went to, you were touring the country. Like, how did LA end up happening? Like, why did you go there? And what happened once you were there?
Well, that was different. Like the first time I went to LA, I was 19 and my dad had just passed, and I maybe a year before. And I lost a bunch of my friends, or I should say a bunch, but I lost a couple people in a car accident.
Oh shit.
That I cared a lot about. My friends and I were like, let's just move to LA. So we did. And the first time I went, it was like to kind of like take acting classes and do some like improv theater classes and everything. But it ended up just being me, him, and a guy who's now very high up at Marvel Studios. He had an internship at Endeavor, which is now I think William Morris Endeavor. They may have spread apart, but it was the company that Ari Gold and Entourage was based on.
Oh shit.
So, dude, I would go get him for lunch, and all you would hear in that place was screaming. I'll never forget that. And he worked there in Red Lobster, and we all shared an apartment in West Hollywood. And we used to just like get in firework wars with these Asian girls that lived across the street, across like the back. So we'd be shooting like bottle rockets and Roman candles at each other, and like we did serious damage to these like apartments.
Oh yeah.
And then one day we drew on a bunch of plates, like Dave, Jimmy, and this other guy. We're having a party on Glen Rock. Come hang out on Glen Rock and rock on Glen Rock, because that was the name of our street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like us drinking beer. We throw this party. We start playing a game called Plinko. I know this isn't what you were looking for, by the way, but I don't know
you're good.
Tell the story. But we were playing this game called Plinko, where you know how like metal stairs will just go up like winding with the railing.
Yeah.
Where we were standing on top of the metal stairs, and dropping beer bottles down, and every time you hit like a certain railing, like if you get all the way, it was 1,000 points, but on the way, like, it'd be like 100, 200, 500, 1,000.
Uh-huh.
And we were playing all night, so there was just like 3 feet of glass in
Oh,
the
Jesus
stairwell.
Christ.
Like, we destroyed this entire part. And then the next day, everybody, like, one dude was at work, my buddy Jimmy was out looking for work, and I'm just sitting there and surrounded in just empty Tecate cans and shit, and I'm just hitting a pipe right when the landlord walks in, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh,
shit.
hey, yeah. And he's like, did you do this to my stairwell? I'm like, no, why?
Why would I
I
do
wasn't
that?
even here. And then he pulls out one of the stupid plate flyers we made and slams it on the table, and he's like, get out. I'm like, okay.